When I was a child, we had a few toys connected to shows we may have seen on television, typically cartoons. But that all went next level when Star Wars came out. They had it figured out and changed the game completely. Do you remember these toys? Welcome to Fantasy for the Ages, the show where a father and son talk about fantasy, science fiction, and other nerdy things we enjoy. Today, a Just Jim episode, this quick take about classic Star Wars toys. And Zach is nowhere to be found because he's clueless about this. This is way before his generation, unless he wants to look into the classic vintage toys you can now buy ridiculously overpriced. But I lived this stuff, and I'm going to talk about it today, and maybe you'll be joining me on memory lane. If you enjoy this episode, be sure to hit the like button and subscribe to the channel if you haven't done so. Please. Thank you very much. I had so many incredible Star Wars toys, from action figures to ships to playsets. The first movie came out when I was 7 years old. And for this little guy, these toys hit the sweet spot for sparking my imagination. Forget about the movies and their plots. I use these toys for all my own Star Wars movies. These were the best. Join me now as I reminisce on some of my favorite Star Wars action figures, ships, and memorabilia. Let's talk about the action figures first. I had a ton of these as I relentlessly pestered my parents for more. Of course, I had all the main characters, but then you needed more than just one version. I think I had like 4 or 5 different Han Solos, just as an example. And then there were so many others that were just unique and awesome. All of the aliens, the droids, some really cool things that we just hadn't seen much of yet, aimed at kids yet in the toy market. So here are my top 10 of the action figures that I had and enjoyed as a kid. Number 10, the Imperial Probe Droid. This thing was cool, and I'd travel it around making the boop 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 noises, and then of course have Han Solo blow it away. Number 9, the Hoth Han Solo that blew it away. I had all these different Han Solos, but this one, he was just cool in his parka, and yeah, it worked for me. Number 8, Yoda, because you just had to have Yoda, and this Yoda came with his own snake and cane. You could do creative things as you're making up your own stories. Number 7 was Boba Fett. Now, my Boba Fett had the jetpack, but it wasn't detachable. But he also had a pistol that you could take off his hand or stick it on his hand and pew, pew, pew. Number 6, Bosk. One of those cool bounty hunters that Darth Vader hired in The Empire Strikes Back. Just such a unique looking alien creature. Speaking of alien creatures, number 5 was Greedo, who we of course meet in the Mos Eisley Cantina. Number 4 was Darth Vader, the one who had a lightsaber that slipped in and up out of his hand. I mean, it was built into the arm. You can see it in the picture. And just slide it out. Now he's doing it. There were cooler ones that came later, but this was the original, and I had it. Number 3, the Tauntaun from the planet Hoth. Now, this was a bigger creature, not a simple action figure, but I didn't know where to stick it. I thought this was a good place to put it on this list. What I particularly liked about the Tauntaun is that his belly pushed in, and he's hollow inside. So you can stick Luke in the Tauntaun. Or whatever else comes to mind when you're just a 10-year-old kid at that point playing with your Star Wars toys. Number 2, Hammerhead. One of the most unique looking aliens from the original set of Star Wars toys. And number 1, IG-88. A droid bounty hunter. Cool. I've been so entertained that this droid model has come back for some of the more newer TV Star Wars that Disney has been bringing to the screen. It's like, I like this one. Again, I had tons of these. I even stored them in, they made little Matchbox car suitcases, and these guys could kind of fit in a lot of those. So I know my folks let me put them in there. So many. Why did I have so many? Because they were not very expensive. They were easy for parents to purchase. Now, ships, they were expensive. So I did not even have 10 of these. I can't give you a top 10 list, but here's my top 6, because I had 6 ships and I played with them incessantly. But from bottom to top, number 6 is barely a ship, the Imperial Troop Transport. It only goes along the ground, but it made noises. It had batteries, and you could put stormtroopers all around it. And one could sit on the top, and it could shoot things. That was fun. Number 5, the Land Speeder, a famous first ship that we're seeing zipping around on Tatooine. This had little wheels under it that kind of had a little give, so it made it look like it's just floating off the ground, just like in the movie. Number 4, the biggest thing I had, the AT-ST. I wanted the big old AT-AT with the 4 little dinosaur. This was smaller and cheaper, so this is the one I got. I'd take it, and I had a lot of fun with it. Number 3, now we're getting to the things that actually fly, and I had a Bespin Twin Pod, from the gas planet Bespin. These were weird on the screen, and it was fun to play with them, but they're kind of weird too. You got a pod here and a pod here, and then just this thing in the middle. But I made it work. Number 2 was an X-Wing. I mean, who doesn't want an X-Wing fighter? These were totally cool. And then number 1 was a Snow Speeder. This was actually the first one I got of the actual ships. And a Snow Speeder, even though it doesn't come out till the second movie, it was really fun. It had batteries as well, so the little laser things would, they'd light up. My sound effects are horrible, but I could shoot things. And then it had a harpoon hook out of the back, just like in the movie. Now, that was all totally manual. There was nothing to shoot the harpoon. And you could put 2 action figures inside. So I had, fighter pilots who could go in there. Or Princess Leia and C-3PO, whoever I wanted to put in my speeder. Sadly, a point of contention as a child, I had no Millennium Falcon. Now, this was the deluxe ship everyone wanted. I had friends with Millennium Falcons. I did not get a Millennium Falcon because it was a granddaddy price. My parents were not spending that much money on a toy. My recollection as a kid, it was like $50. That was a lot of money back in the 70s, even in the early 80s. So no Millennium Falcon. I need to get myself one day and put it here in my room because I'm a grown man and I can afford things now. Because, I really need a Millennium Falcon. Okay, Playsets. Now, these were the bigger things, sets and scenarios from different places around the planets and things of the Star Wars movies. I had 4 because these cost money. These were like Christmas presents I would get. I wasn't talking them into it when we happened to stop by Toys R Us, which used to be a real store, not just a department in Macy's. Toys R Us, real thing. And we would go, and it was fun, and I'd come out with an action figure. But I wanted the Death Star! I was probably obnoxious as a kid at times. But thank you, Mom and Dad, I got 4. So from bottom to top of my preferences, the 4th one was the Mos Eisley Cantina. Yeah, the Cantina had little pegs in spots because all of these action figures had a hole on each foot. So you could stick them in a peg, and the playsets often had pegs. So you could stand them up and they wouldn't just fall over. You didn't have to balance them perfect. You just stick them in. They're there. But then it had things on the floor that you could cause the characters to turn. You could move them a little bit by manipulating different parts of the playset. It was all just plastic stuff, but it worked. That was fun. Then I had the Hoth Turret and Probe set. The turret is like from the movie, and it's got this big thing to shoot. Because the bad guys are coming, so shoot them, shoot the Empire. And it would turn, and the door opened, and you could go inside the turret. The probe was just that's how I actually got the Imperial probe droid. It came with this set. They have nothing to do with each other on the screen. I didn't care. Cool things I could play with, and my imagination went wild. I also had the Hoth Imperial Attack Base. So, two things from the planet of Hoth, and lots of different creative play that I enjoyed with that set. But my favorite was the Dagobah set. All these cool little things you could do with this setting from Yoda's planet. You could go inside. There's Yoda's home, basically. You had little boxes that could be floating in air, like it's the Force. You had little controllers and little pegs that they could stick in. There was the foam mud pit where things could sink down in. You could lose your droid. I had an R2D2, of course. He would fall into the mud pit. That was just cool, and I really enjoyed it. There was much, much more available in Star Wars toys, but although my parents loved me very much, that did not mean an unending flow of money was given my way. I could only have so many Star Wars toys. Honestly, I think I was almost indulged with the amount of Star Wars I had. And yet I still wanted more. Like the Millennium Falcon? Nope, not bitter. It was good that my parents set boundaries for me. I consider myself, having been a very fortunate young man, that I did have all of these Star Wars toys, though, to play with. It really supported a growing imagination and helped me develop into the person I am today. And it was just a lot of fun. Did you have any of these Star Wars toys? Whether back in the day originally or later? Because you could still buy them. You can still buy Star Wars toys now. Do you have current versions of any of these? Share your memories and thoughts in the comment box. Thanks for watching. We'll talk to you next time.